So first tonight to the fault lines and the brooding, contaminated skies of Rivers State, where President Tinubu has again walked into the storm, not merely to still the thunder, but to attempt to change the direction of the wind itself. The state has become the theatre, and Mr. Tinubu is in the thick of its political fog, attempting to redraw the lines of power and reroute its currents. On the front page of this day newspaper, the president is reported to have brokered a new peace urging the FCT minister, Ogwuche, to halt impeachment moves against Governor Fubara. The terms are telling. Governor Fubara is to formally recognize Minister Wike as his political leader, while any conversation about a second term is taken off the table, at least for now. On the surface, it's reconciliation. Beneath, it's power management. Rivers is not just a state, it's a political and financial nerve center, and how it is controlled could shape alliances, war chests, and leverage heading into 2027. But peace deals in Nigerian politics rarely end conflicts. They merely postpone them. So is this a fragile truce that simply delays an inevitable showdown as 2027 draws ever closer? Well, for more on this, I'm joined now on the line from Port Harcourt by the political analyst and human rights lawyer, Chief Festus Ogwuche. Chief Ogwuche, thank you very much indeed for joining us. Busy day for you, no doubt, so we're grateful to you for taking the time to talk to us. What's your reaction to this latest development around the crisis in Rivers State? I mean, I wonder what message is sent to you from a constitutional standpoint when a sitting governor is asked to publicly recognize a political godfather as a condition for peace.
Well, thanks, Charles, for inviting me. To me, it's rather incredible that a thing like this is happening. We're all familiar with constitutional principles, with democratic traditions, with the practice of democracy in Nigeria. And it is quite that a non-party member is bequeathed with the authority of the undisputed leader of the party within the state. But these things happen, and Rivers State happened to be a theater, like I call it, a theater where anything can go. But then you won't blame anybody for that, because Fubara miscalculated his steps and fell into this little quagmire. Now he's faced with a cul-de-sac, and it will be very difficult, probably for him to get some reprieve. It is very definitely very showing that they seriously want to put him where they think he belongs. I think at the end of the day, the Constitution is kept at bay for now, because it is rather strange that even though we don't have anything like a political leader of states or political leader anywhere in the Constitution, but the tradition appears to be broken, and this will open a floodgate issues surrounding it. Initially, his supporters, Fubara supporters, had not been very supportive of the romance he started to have Wike and Tinubu immediately upon the suspension of democratic governance in the state. And they warned him to that effect, and now he finds himself in this quagmire that may not likely be the appropriate decision for him to follow. Post 2007. Or pre-2007, sorry.
Right. So, well, to be fair, your microphone is breaking up a little, but I think we're getting most of what you're saying. I'm not quite sure why it's doing that, but the president's intervention is being sold as conflict resolution. At what point in your assessment does peace brokering become undue interference in the autonomy of an elected state government? And isn't there a danger here that constitutional authority is being subordinated, making it really quite unclear who exactly governs Rivers State in this arrangement.
Expressed the extent to which some constitutional frameworks where you have governors hold office at the instance of federal power brokers, and where state assemblies are subordinate to the president, and where officialdom or governance at state level is subject to the veto power of state actors and godfathers. It's a very serious problem, really, because it contradicts everything that you can find in the Constitution. Even though I would say that the Fubara fell into it directly, and failing to listen to wise counsel that politics is a game played frontally into the hands of the opponent. You take it beat by beat, one after the other. Worst of all, he had so he's subject to whatever the party says, and we thought that could have provided him some shade of protection. But then we have a situation where the federal arrangement is being subsumed into, the state arrangement is being subsumed into the federal arrangement, sort of creating a unitary system that the presidency can determine who gets what and who gets to be the undisputed leader of a state. We also have a situation where political power revolves not around the governor, just there for the sake of it, but the whole thing revolves again around godfather, particularly the presidency, where the presidency has now come to understand or give us the impression that godfatherism be recognized as part of our national or democratic framework. It sets a very dangerous pattern, particularly for those of us who believe that we are practicing a federal system of government, and that federalism should be much more pronounced in weakening the power and strength of the states, and lessening the power of the diversity for more inclusiveness and for more generative power in the component structure of the Federal Republic of Nigeria.
Well, as I mentioned, Chief Festus, you're breaking up a little there, but I hope that you can hear me and can, sort of grasp the questions that I'm putting to you. If the same approach were applied in a less politically strategic state, do you believe the presidency would intervene in the same way, or is Rivers being treated differently?
I won't say it is Rivers being treated differently. The Supreme Court nod on these actions of the president. The Supreme Court came into being, and that was what broke the jinx in all the thing is that it has become the norm now. It's been normalized that the president can intervene in the affairs of states. It's also normalized that it can appoint anybody to be the leader of the state, the political leader of whether he's a ruling political party or not. It's immaterial. It has also been normalized that the House of Assembly of the states can be commanded or commandeered by the presidency or by a particular process that is inclusive to them. It's something that you'll say is not exclusive to Rivers State, where, and that is the fear some of us express, that it could be a threat to democracy when such overarching and overriding powers are given to the president to do and undo, particularly to tell the members of the House of Assembly what to do, in an impeachment process, which the Supreme Court had in several cases. In Akuja and Adeleke said that nobody can interfere. The Darius case is there that said it has nothing to do with what the House of Assembly of Rivers State is doing. If they want to impeach, the president has virtually no authority or power to intervene. So we now see a situation where we have the institutions of governance in the state kowtowing and bowing and obsequiously trying to please or buy the hearts of the president. That's the situation we find here. You know, just like somebody who's there as a king and everybody is subject to his whims and caprices, which is very, very unhealthy for democracy. So anything can happen to anybody, anywhere, anytime. Apparently, that's why all the governors of the states ran to the ruling political party for safety and for security of their tenure in 2027. And probably to ensure that those state of emergency or removal of democratic structures are affected in their states.
Well, I mean, to be fair, Governor Fubara has also run to the APC, but that doesn't appear to have completely ended his problems. Do you think that the president has now managed to freeze that conflict in such a way that it won't muddy the waters for him in 2027? Or do you think that this River State crisis could end up, in fact, being President Tinubu's greatest challenge, especially as 2027 draws near?
That's a fantastic question. Because I said earlier that if Fubara had known, it should have been a little more calculative and diplomatic. That he is going through what he's going through now suggests that he doesn't quite understand the depth of the relationship between Wike and President Tinubu. It goes beyond the godfather-godson relationship at the first level. It goes deeper into certain undercurrents that you and I may not be able to fathom here. At the end of the day, it's very clear that the presidents will all Wike, even at the first stage that he the second stage, and even this, it has been extraordinary measures to place Wike at a very vantage position. Be a very good this thing for. At least he has lost a lot of political power. There's been a lot of corruption at the local government level, at the also, and some other aspects of governance. And it's a sorry pass for him, but I don't think he's going to get any reprieve as far as this contraption is concerned. There's no end to his fate that has come to be very unapologetic in the minds and hearts of those who are traducing him, if you permit my word.
And looking at the impeachment process from a legal and constitutional perspective, does halting impeachment through what I might call political instruction rather than due legislative process weaken the doctrine of the separation of powers, or does it simply expose how fragile it already is?
He answered the question that impeachment is purely a constitutional thing, and it's within the capacity of the legislature. Section 188 of the Constitution is quite straightforward and unambiguous to that effect. You don't invoke impeachment processes anyhow. And for you to do that, it must be on very sure grounds. The Supreme Court has stated that in an avalanche of judicial authorities. Have a situation where the impeachment process has become sort of a tool for victimization, a model for name calling, and maybe it's not actually a legislative process meant to remove the governor, but meant to sort of cajole him into getting things done the way they want. And he fell for all of them. It's quite a sorry situation that he did not calculate his steps and he fell for all of them. But like I say, the constitutional process is like a flyer, flyer to tell him that, look, we have your balls in our hands and anything can happen. And each time they invoke it, they put the fears in him. He goes with the tails behind his back and gets things done the way they want it. And apparently that's why he joined the APC political party, like the others, hoping that these threats and put a stop political to shake him to his foundations.
Right. Well, what precedents do you think this is setting for future disputes between governors and their political sort of benefactors? I mean, Is it saying that power flows upwards to party brokers, not downwards to voters?
We are drifting from a legal constitutionalism to a constitutionalism that not justified by law. It also tells us that the power belongs to people who can bend institutions to their own will, not necessarily people who hold political office. It also tells us that there's possible fragmentation within state structures because people may not agree with that brand of democracy. It tells us also that the ignored totally and completely, and there's no points conducting elections because the credibility of the process will stand challenged at any time, any day for its transparency when you have this kind of situation rolling by. The fact remains that the constitutional framework that we have is not quite faulty, though. I think it's the manner we operate it, but not much has been done to take care of issues of this nature. And now that it appears that godfatherism has become a new entrant into our political dictionary and our political tradition, then of course we are going to see that it's going to corrode constitutionalism, it's going to corrode democracy, it's going to corrode the principles upon which our democratic system is anchored.
Nevertheless, the president, certainly the front page of this day newspaper, suggests that a measure of peace has been restored. From your experience and your knowledge of Rivers State, does this settlement lower political tension, or does it merely silence dissent while grievances fester beneath the surface?
But I don't think it will lower any political tension. Probably, like you said, it will silence dissent to some extent. Because here we have a governor who is ensconced between four principalities of power: the House of Assembly, Wike, the presidency, and the people of Rivers State. And if you are in his shoes, you find out that it will be a very difficult, it will be very, very difficult for him to maintain a balance in between these four citadels of power. I think it's going to have far-reaching implications on the balance unless it is properly addressed, to ensure that there's sanity in the system, to ensure that constitutional principles are upheld, democratic traditions are respected. Mighty God, the rule of law will come into play. I doubt it's something that will be acceptable in some quarters. You know, a lot of people, a lot of persons that I know activists already expressing their opinion and stating quite frankly that this is totally and completely out of the way, because we now have a system where, like I told you, the democratic system is being shortchanged in a manner to satisfy political elites, particularly godfathers, and in a manner to subjugate the will of the people and keep them at bay and completely ineffective and ineffectual in the affairs of governance in the state. So it has made governance to be a lot more transactional than constitutional.
Right, and talking about the will of the people, by declaring that Governor Fubara's second term is not for discussion, isn't the future choice of Rivers voters being preempted? And I wonder whether that raises constitutional red flags for you.
Not just constitutional red flags, but electoral red flags. And that is why I said that if that becomes the case, then the electoral system has to be scrapped. You don't need to spend so much money conducting elections, you know. And I say it corrodes upon the provisions of the Constitution. We all know the manner in which Fubara came in. It was the single work of the FCT minister. And he did it successfully, and probably he's getting the gains for it. But then the constitutional, the rule of law, the due process of the law, the things that pertain to democracy, freedom, governance principles, particularly, and the ascription to people power to sort to how things are run in a normal thing. And the thing is that these strictures are already normalized as a norm. Maybe if somebody puts you in there, it's going to be government by proxy. You either abide by his will, or you begin to find yourself in a storm, the sort of storm that Fubara is in now, which is quite unhealthy. I think it will have very far-reaching implications in our political system unless something is done seriously to abate it.
Well, supporters of the president's intervention argue that stability justifies compromise, but you don't agree.
I disagree totally. I disagree because this one has not created any stability. Probably stability for 2027 for those who want to get it there, but not Fubara anyway, because Wike had told us that he will never give him that opportunity. That's why he was even quarreling with his candidature, his attempt to join the political party, or the APC political party, considered as a safe haven. So stability does not come in here at all. It creates a lot of instability, it creates a lot of contradictions, it creates a lot of inconsistencies, even with provisions of the Constitution. The real politic of this all is the fact that we overlook the fundamental aspects and look at the practical manifestation of what is happening and think that probably some people are more powerful than others. And then the arrays of power begin to shine amongst the power brokers here and there, including the godfathers and every other body. And people now train themselves, prepare themselves, not necessarily to contest elections for governorship, but to make themselves godfathers.
Well, we're almost out of time, but just in summary, and at the risk of making you repeat yourself, but just so we get as much clarity as we can, given the fact that we had a couple of breakages in your line there. Ultimately, does this episode strengthen Nigeria's democracy, or does it signal a shift towards what I might call managed politics, where elections matter less than negotiated loyalty?
Yes. It has engendered the kind of governance that will not be given any definition of democratic setup. It has also created a system that is engineered by policy paralysis and conflicting directions, governments by share, how do I put it now? By share brute, and that's the only way you can get this kind of loyalty we are talking about. It has also created a precedent that will be very unhealthy, like I say, to our democratic system. Like I told you before, legal constitutionalism has been kept in abeyance. What we have now is political constitutionalism. Whether it adheres with the provisions of the Constitution is very immaterial. Whether it can stand the test of time doesn't really matter. People are only interested. I think the entire target of all these activities is on 2027. And we don't know to the extent to which it could be practically feasible, but I think some persons think that they've already had it. And the idea of tyranny in the first place is not one that is usually engendered by the person or the protagonist or the head of state or president. It is the people around him by these kind of activities that make him look like a demigod. So it's a tendency towards a one-party state. It's a tendency towards totalitarianism. It's a tendency towards the subjugation of the people. It's a tendency towards maybe the abrogation of sovereignty in its entirety.
Okay, on that note, I want to thank you very much indeed, Chief Festus Ogwuche, He's a political analyst and human rights lawyer. He was talking to me from a rather dodgy line in Port Harcourt there, and I apologize to our viewers. I'm not quite sure what happened there. The line kept breaking up, but I hope that, like me, you got the gist of what he was saying, broadly speaking.